Good morning, my name is Tyler and I'm a grade 7 student at St. Dominic School. I'll be serving as one of the student MCs this morning. At this time, we would like to begin our ceremony. Please ensure all pagers and cell phones are turned to silent mode.
Good morning, my name is Melissa. I am also a grade 7 student and will serve as co-MC for this morning's ceremony.
St. Dominic School is committed to living our faith through our actions. As such, we would like to start today's ceremony with a prayer. This prayer encourages us to live for the good of others, and we believe that our actions here today reflect our commitment to that idea. We invite grade 7 students Brandon and Sophia to lead us in prayer.
Please join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of justice and love, you created us in your own image and gave us the wonderful gift of life. You planted in our hearts the desire to love and be loved, and in your Son, Jesus, gave us the perfect example of how to live.
Bless us with your grace and give us the strength and courage to live for the good of others rather than ourselves. May we always be open to hear your word as we learn to do good and seek justice in our world. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We welcome all students, parents, and community members. A warm welcome is extended to friends and family members of our beloved veterans, and we are grateful to see the support of various groups and dignitaries of the greater Oakville community. Today is a very special day. We will unveil another plaque in hopes of honoring and remembering those of the armed forces whose voices and stories of hope, courage, perseverance, and patriotism have not been told. There are thousands of men and women who have served our country whose contributions have not been recognized and whose stories have been lost in time. Symbolizing those thousands of men and women are 8 members of our community who will be honored with a memory book today. It was important for us, the grade 7 students of St. Dominic School, to capture the memories of our veterans and realize that there is much that brings the generations closer together.
At this time, we would like to thank the following people and community partners for their support of our veterans, the students of St. Dominic School, and for their attendance today. Mr. Mike Venzel, Mr. Ron Kirk, Mr. Andy Barber, Mr. Bill Shields, Mr. John Burke, Mr. George Stahl, Mr. Hugh Patterson, and Mr. Ken Lloyd, proud Canadians and members of our armed forces who shared their life with grade 7 students through oral history interviews this past February. Mr. Kevin Flynn, Member of Provincial Parliament for Oakville and Minister of Labour. Mr. Ralph Robinson, Town of Oakville Councillor for Ward 1, and Mr. Sean O'Mara, also a Councillor for Ward 1. Ms. Paula Dawson, Director of Education for the Halton Catholic District School Board. Ms. Nina March and Ms. Tara Hambley of the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association. Mrs. Alice Ann LeMay, past Chair and Trustee for the Halton Catholic District School Board. Mrs. Kristen Courtney from MediChair. Mr. Mike Watkinson of Edge Imaging. Father Mike Anderson, pastor of St. Dominic's Catholic Church. And a special thanks to the town of Oakville, and especially Mr. Chris Mark, Director of Parks and Open Space, for his ongoing support of our project.
We have several dignitaries in attendance who support our desire to honor the men and women who have served our country in the armed forces. Please welcome Ms. Paula Dawson, Director of Education for the Halton Catholic District School Board, to bring greetings from the board.
Veterans and members of the Canadian Armed Forces, MPP Kevin Flynn, Councillors Ralph Robinson and Sean O'Mara, Reverend Father Mike, students, parents, staff, current and former trustees, and guests. I'm delighted to be here with you today, and I thank you for joining us. As a school district, we value the importance of honoring our communities, and one of the best ways we are able to honor communities is by paying tribute to the many men and women who've given so much of themselves so that we may enjoy the freedoms in our wonderful country, Canada. This morning's ceremony has been organized to honor the veterans who shared their stories with our grade 7 students at St. Dominic's Catholic Education Elementary School. Our veterans' voices provided a powerful human dimension to a history lesson that needs to be taught, one which we all need to learn and remember. On behalf of the Halton Catholic District School Board, I want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to share your history and experience with our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson. We are pleased to welcome Mr. Kevin Flynn, our Member of Provincial Parliament and Minister of Labour, to say a few words.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here this morning, and thanks to all that have had, who played a part in organizing this great day. I get to visit a lot of the schools in the town of Oakville and the region of Halton. I'll tell you, it's tough to beat St. Dominic's for the, they really punch above their weight in terms of the number of students they have, the impact they have on the community. Is really something that I think is, really sets an example and sets a very high bar for the other schools in this area to emulate. So often we take things for granted. We assume that every neighborhood's got a school like St. Dominic's in it. That's not true. St. Dominic's is a very, very special place. And as a result of being a very, very special place with some great students and some very special teachers, Mr. McPhail obviously is somebody that is known to the community as a person that walks the talk when it comes to our armed services and to the history of our country and the history of our community. To set in motion a project like you see behind me here, the Veterans Garden, is something people might talk about. Other people like the Mr. McPhails of the world and the students of St. Dominic's actually go out and do it. And that's a much different thing because it results in something that stands the test of time. And because it's such a special place, it really allows us to do something special here today, and that is to pay some special attention to people that have served this community, the province of Ontario, our country, and indeed the entire world at a time when we really needed it the most. The time when this world was in trouble, there was different forces at play. One force would have taken us in an entirely different direction, which would seem very strange to us today, where we live in a land of freedom, the democracy we have. There were men and women that stood up at that time and did the right thing. So Mr. McPhail, thanks to you, thanks to the students, thanks to all associated with the board. Paula, thank you for your kind words. Thanks for everyone that's helped make this a very, very special day. To the veterans themselves, thank you for being here. You've certainly got my respect. You've certainly got my gratitude for what you're able to do for my generation. It's wonderful to see that some kids here who are in JK and SK perhaps are going to have they're going to know what you did as well, and it's something that they're going to remember as well. So thank you for inviting me here today.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. We would like to welcome our Town of Oakville Councillor, Mr. Ralph Robinson, to say a few words.
Minister and ladies and gentlemen, good morning everyone, and once again it's so exciting and respectful to gather here. I am so proud of the relationship that has been established with the students of St. Dominic's and our war heroes going back to early 2010 when I became involved with Mr. McPhail's grade 7 class as they developed their dream to recognize those soldiers that defended and protected our freedom. St. Dominic continues to march forward with their belief as exemplified by the presentation of the new plaque and the We Remember booklet, which some of you have already seen and you've heard mentioned. On behalf of the town of Oakville, thank you, St. Dominic.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Representing the Royal Canadian Bronte Legion and Mr. John Burke, who will say a few words of greeting.
Good morning, and thank you, students, for the invitation to be here today. It's my pleasure, on behalf of the Bronte Legion, Branch 486, to say how happy we are and to thank you for everything that you've done for us, remembering our veterans. Branch 486, Bronte Legion, is particularly pleased that St. Dominic's are represented in our annual Remembrance Day Parade, and that pleases us. And I noticed that our parade marshal, Mike Vincel, is with us here today. Perhaps if you're kind to him, he might get us closer to the front this coming November. Anyway, with that, the years go by so quickly that it's hard to believe that this began in 2010, and I believe this is the 5th year that we've had this ceremony at the actual gardens here. The original grade 7 students have gone on to high school, and they'll be graduating shortly. But I hope that grade 7s and the other grades that are here today will continue with this, keeping this project alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. We invite Miss Nina March of the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association to say a few words.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Mr. McPhail and his grade 7 students from St. Dominic School for inviting me here today on behalf of the Catholic elementary teachers in the Halton Catholic District School Board. It is my pleasure to attend this very important ceremony to unveil the plaque to commemorate all veterans whose stories remain untold, and to dedicate a memory book to the veterans who have generously shared their story with Mr. McPhail and his grade 7 class. Year after year, Mr. McPhail and his students foster ongoing relationships with veterans and family members of Canadian soldiers. They learn about the experiences of these brave men and women, and they pay tribute to our veterans. This past November, I was at the Remembrance Day service at the Bronte Cenotaph as I watched Mr. McPhail and his students march in the parade in solidarity, paying tribute to our veterans and those who had lost their lives in service to our country. I was proud, even though I had nothing to do with the learning that had gone on in Mr. McPhail's classroom, nor had I walked with his students. But I was proud to see that our children understood and respected the sacrifice that was made for all of us. I was proud as a fellow Catholic teacher and as the daughter of a World War II veteran. As Mr. McPhail's students demonstrated their respect and remembrance as they marched in the parade and laid their wreaths in November, and again today, conducting this ceremony to honor both Bronte veterans and all veterans, it makes me hopeful that as future leaders they will foster and facilitate peace because they truly understand what others have sacrificed for it. On June 6, 2014, at a ceremony commemorating the 70th anniversary of D-Day landings, Pope Francis stated that present generations should express their full gratitude to all those who made such a heavy sacrifice. He also wrote that by educating future generations to respect all men and women created in the image of God and passing down memories to them, it is possible to hope for a better future. Just a couple of weeks ago in the Netherlands, there was a celebration marking the 70th anniversary of their liberation. There were about a dozen Canadian veterans, World War II veterans, present at that ceremony. There were so few present because those who are left are in their 90s now. It is important that we learn, share, and remember the stories of all of our veterans. Their stories help us to remember the importance of promoting and living in peace. Thank you to all of our veterans for the sacrifice and the service to our country that you made. Thank you to Mr. McPhail and his grade 7 students for the work that you do. Thank you for helping us to honor and remember all of our veterans.
Thank you, Ms. March. We welcome Ms. Kristen Courtney, organizer of the Oakville Veterans Appreciation Luncheon, donor to the garden, and owner of MediChair, to say a few words.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here today. I just want to express my gratitude to our veterans. Thank you so much. We owe you a debt of gratitude, and I'm so thankful to see all the people and the children especially honoring our veterans. It's a wonderful thing. I do share the same sentiments expressed here today, and I thank everybody for them. Most of all, I just want to thank the students for all that you're doing to honor our veterans. You inspire many people, including me, and I encourage you to keep up the great work. And I want to thank you all so much for the beautiful cards that you prepare each year for the annual Veterans Appreciation Luncheon. They're all beautiful to look at, and the sentiments expressed within them are absolutely beautiful and most appreciated. We loved having the choir, 52-member choir, singing O Canada last November on a 16 by 12 foot stage, and somehow you all managed to beautifully form yourselves with the help of your teachers and sing so beautifully. So thank you so much. And to Mrs. Mackay for coming out and helping to serve, and Mr. McPhail for helping to make it all happen. All of the students, we just thank you all so much. And again, veterans, thank you. Let's give a hand for our veterans, our nation's heroes. Thank you so much.
At this time, we would like to call on Danielle and Joanna, who will remind us of how this garden was started and to thank our past and present supporter.
Good morning, my name is Danielle, a grade 7 student at St. Dominic School. Many of you may not know how this garden came to be, or how St. Dominic students became so active in remembering our fallen men and women. The location of the Veterans Garden is significant in that it is located along the Halton Region's Veterans Highway. The creation of the garden came from the inspiration of one family's story of loss. For the past several years, the grade 7 students at St. Dominic School have created posters and letters of tribute to the families of our fallen soldiers. We started with a simple poster and letter addressed to the family of Corporal Robert James Mitchell, a soldier who gave his life in the cause of freedom in Afghanistan. Mrs. Carol Mitchell, Robert's mother, wrote back to the school and later visited us to say thanks. The students were so moved to hear of the impact of her small gestures that they convinced of a visible and lasting tribute to our veterans, our fallen men and women, and their families on the Halton Region's Veteran Highway.
The garden became a reality thanks to our donors, the town of Oakville, and the support of our local councillor, Ralph Robinson. Even Canada's Minister of National Defence, the Honourable Peter MacKay, heard about our garden and visited us in June 2012. Further, the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, the Honourable David Onley, recognized the efforts of our grade 7 students by awarding us the 2012 Lieutenant Governor's Ontario Heritage Award for Youth Achievement. As of today, we have plaques and benches dedicated to the soldiers who have served in a variety of conflicts. From World War II, we honored Private Paul Parkin. Also from World War II, we celebrated the life of Private Hartley Tosh. From the Afghanistan conflict, we have remembered Corporal Robert Mitchell, Oakville native, Colonel Jeff Parker, Trooper Mark Diab, and Private Blake Williamson. From the Cold War, we honored Mr. Rick Richards, past president of Bronte Legion, who served in the Royal Canadian Air Force and was a proud supporter of this garden.
I am pleased to share with you the importance of our past and present donors who made the garden possible. Without the support of our community partners, the students of St. Dominic School would not have been able to achieve our goals of honoring our fallen men and women, our veterans and their families. We are very grateful that so many other proud Canadians stepped up and contributed to the Bronte Veterans Garden. Your donations are much appreciated. We would like to thank the following people and groups for their past and present support of our garden. The Town of Oakville and Chris Mark, Director of Parks and Open Spaces. The Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 486. Prefer Electric. Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association, Halton Unit. Medicare. The St. Dominic School Community. The Ministry of Education through the Speak Up program for Student Voice. And we would like to thank a new donor who helped us to realize the creation and printing of our oral history through memory books. Special thanks to Mike Watkinson of Edge Imaging for providing complimentary printing and design for our memory books. We know the veterans will appreciate the care taken to put these together. Hannah and Savannah will now explain the importance of today's ceremony.
There are thousands of men and women who have served in the armed forces. However, many of their voices and stories are lost in history. Their contributions are not fully recognized and remembered by generations of Canadians who enjoy the gifts of freedom and peace these men and women fought for. This is particularly poignant this year, the 70th anniversary of VE Day, Victoria and Europe Day, which ended World War II. So many young men and women never came home from that conflict and many other conflicts, such as Korea, UN peacekeeping missions, the Cold War in Afghanistan. For those of us who are able to watch our Canadian men and women welcomed back to the Netherlands, a country liberated by Canadians at the end of World War II, we are reminded of some important lessons. 1. To honor those who never came home. We have a chance to glimpse into their lives and allow their voices to be heard through their colleagues who did come home, through an oral history interview. 2nd, that we honor those who came home from various conflicts by connecting one generation to another through the sharing of their life story with the children of today. By listening and connecting to them, we honor their service to our country.
Closer to home, we are reminded of the past tragedies in Ottawa with the assault on the tomb of the unknown soldier, at the death of Corporal Nathan Cirilla, who guarded it. In Quebec, Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent was also attacked and killed. These two men were dedicated to preservation of peace and freedom, two gifts of perseverance generations bequeathed to us. It is our goal not to forget about these sacrifices and that their colleagues still with us. To the end, we, the grade 7 students at St. Dominic School, conducted oral history interviews with several past members of the armed forces in February of 2015. We worked hard to capture the stories of these men and made many connections to them. Many of us found that our lives weren't that much different from theirs when they were in grade 7. The men we interviewed loved life as much as we do. They liked to play sports, loved their families, and celebrated unique family traditions at Christmas and other celebrations, much like we do today. Some loved school and others found homework in school wasn't their cup of tea. One common characteristic we all share is our love of family, freedom, and our country of Canada. We worked hard to review our transcript, revise and edit our work, and put all of it together in a memory book. We are very happy to be able to present each one of you as a copy of our work to you, our beloved veterans. Also, we will unveil a plaque dedicated to all veterans whose stories remain untold. Symbolically, by honoring the 8 gentlemen today, we are remembering their colleagues who have passed in combat in peacetime and whose voices and stories are important to remember and recognize.
Thank you, Hannah and Savannah. We would like to call on Alex Diaz-Galarza to introduce the life of Mr. Andy Barber of the Royal Canadian Navy. Would Mr. Barber please join Alex at the podium?
Good morning. My name is Alex D, and I'm here to talk to you about the life of one of the bravest people I know. His name is Andy Barber. My friends Nicholas, Kyle, and Lucas and I were lucky enough to interview him. Andy Barber was born on August 4th, 1933 in Montreal. Growing up, Andy didn't have much entertainment at home, so he would spend most of his time outside playing with his friends. He liked to play many different games, such as hockey, soccer, and kick the can. During World War II, Andy's parents had to open a restaurant to make money. The name of the restaurant was Andy's, because his father's and grandfather's name is Andy. Unfortunately, the restaurant burned down one night. One of Andy's most memorable moments was joining the Navy. In the Navy, Andy served in the Korean War, which lasted from 1950 to 1953. This was also another memorable time in his life. Serving in the Navy wasn't the only thing Andy did. He also worked at a big company called Northern Electric, and later in 2002 he started retrieving taxes. Today, Andy is retired, but that doesn't stop him from helping the community. He gives presentations at schools and gives tours at the HMCS Haida. During our interview, we asked Andy about his memories of being in grade 7, like us. Here is what he told us. Andy started grade 7 in 1945. His teacher, Miss Molloy, was an Army veteran, and because of Andy, he really looked up to him. English was Andy's favorite subject because he was good at it. He also liked religion and history. Andy's least favorite subject was math. Interviewing Andy Barber is one of the most memorable things I did in my life, so I want to thank him by presenting this memory book to him.
Thank you, Alex and Mr. Barber. I had the honor of interviewing Mr. John Burke of the Royal Canadian Air Force. Would Mr. Burke please join me at the podium? Good morning, veterans, Mr. Ralph Robinson, Kevin Flynn, students, and member of the community. My name is Melissa Ruda. My partner Danielle and I learned a lot when we had the opportunity to interview John Burke. John Burke shared some common interests with myself and Danielle, such as math being our favorite subject. Also, Mr. Burke and I share our passion for sports. Mr. Burke joined the Canadian Air Force partially because his father was a part of World War II, but also because he lived near a place that would assemble the aircrafts, and from his bedroom window he would watch them take off. He joined the Air Force at the age of 18. When he told us this, I nearly flipped because inside of how young these brave soldiers were to risk their lives for us, and to show our appreciation, I'd like to present you with this memory book.
I'd like to thank Melissa and Megan for the interviews. I wasn't the best interviewee, I'll tell you that. One of the questions I was asked was what your challenging moments, and I told my wife I couldn't think of anything. She said, "What? You didn't tell them about the time in October 1962 during the Cuban crisis? You came home and packed a small bag and took off." And I said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I can't tell you." She said, "How long will you be away?" I can't tell you. Fortunately, that hostility never occurred. But anyway, I want to thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Evan Colley will introduce the life of Mr. Ron Kirk. Would Mr. Kirk please join Evan at the podium?
Good morning, students, community members, donors, and veterans. My group, Blake, James, Greg, and I, learned a lot while interviewing Mr. Kirk. He was in the Navy and specialized in visual communications. He went around most of the world. He was born in 1933 in Montreal. When he got older, he was a milkman with the help of his dad. Soon after high school, he went to a boot camp for the Navy. For many people, this was hard, but for him, it was easy. Our group members had some connections to Mr. Kirk. Greg and I both don't like to read, and in grade 7, Mr. Kirk didn't like to read either. In grade 7, Mr. Kirk's teacher was giving out a book report, and he was to choose one book and do a book report on it. But he was not listening, so he thought he was supposed to read 3 books and do 3 book reports, And so he did, and he got her A+, and now he loves to read. James' connection to Mr. Kirk was that he does not like hockey, and James doesn't like hockey either. In grade 7, all of Mr. Kirk's friends played hockey, and in Montreal is known for hockey. James doesn't like hockey either, but all of his friends do. We interview these veterans to represent the thousands of soldiers that don't get to come home and tell their story. On behalf of my group and I would like to give Mr. Kirk this book.
Thank you, Evan and Mr. Kirk. Sarah Mills will introduce the life of Mr. Ken Lloyd of the Royal Signals Corps. Would Mr. Lloyd please join Sarah at the podium?
Good morning. I am Sarah M. and here to thank many honorable veterans and share the fascinating story of Canada's own Ken Lloyd. Mr. Ken Lloyd was born in England on February 5, 1951. He grew up by the Trent River in Stoke-on-Trent, England. He had no siblings to bond or argue with, but plenty of time to play with his favorite wooden train. Lloyd enjoyed playing sports such as French cricket and was on the cross-country team running around 16 kilometers daily. He got beat for failing math and got this strap. "No, it's not child abuse," he said in his English accent. Lloyd has had more than 6 jobs, including a teacher and police officer, and has lived in more than 7 countries, including Germany and Hong Kong. Lloyd was in an army reserve in Germany during the Cold War and also served in the Cuban crisis. Training was so difficult that they lost men before they were even on the battlefield. Throughout our interview, we shared many connections. As Lloyd was a police officer in Halton Region and Hong Kong, a few of us have family members who are currently a part of the force. Another group member connected to Mr. Ken Lloyd's story as his father also served in the military. We interviewed veterans to get back to them, as Lloyd said himself, "If you're going to make a change, make your own change." We are honored to present this book, in which is dedicated to those here today and many men and women who did not make it home and have the chance to share their stories. We are grateful to present this memory book of our appreciation.
Thank you, Sarah and Mr. Lloyd.
Savannah Arney will now introduce the life of Mr. Hugh Patterson of the Royal Canadian Corps of Signals. Would Mr. Patterson please join Savannah at the podium?
Good morning, community members, students, donors to the garden, and of course the noble veterans themselves. My name is Savannah Arney, and today it is my honor to talk to you about a veteran me and my group member Amy have learned about, Hugh Patterson. Hugh Patterson was born on December 30th, 1921 in Caledonia, Ontario, a small town just south of Hamilton. Hugh was raised on a farm with cow, sheep, pig, and grain. Hugh enjoyed rugby, skating, and most of all softball in his grade 7 year. He was an electrician most of his life and also worked on his farm. In 1948, Hugh got married to his wife Barbara and had 9 children. In 1942, Hugh joined the permanent force and went to places like Normandy, England, and Germany. And in June 2014, Hugh received the Knights of Legions of Honor medal from the French government. When Amy and I interviewed Hugh Patterson, we felt a sense of joy and happiness just being in the presence of someone so remarkable. But something that I think is amazing, and that it doesn't matter where you are from. You can be from a big city like Toronto or a small town like Caledonia and still help others in need. And I think Hugh Patterson shows that you don't have to be famous or a millionaire to help others in need. You can practically come from anywhere, any walk of life, and any lifestyle and still make a difference. And most of all, I think that Hugh Patterson symbolizes all the men and women whose stories never been told and that will never be rightfully honored. My fellow classmates and I believe that it is so important to honor the men and women who risk their lives for others, and how it is so important to tell others their stories, because so many stories will never be told. It is my honor to present you with this memory book.
Thank you, Savannah and Amy, for the interview. I've just returned from Holland a week ago for the 70th anniversary celebrations. And they certainly turned out and showed their appreciation just as you students of grade 7 have done today. So thank you very much.
Unfortunately, Bill Shields is not available to be with us today. After returning from VE celebrations in Europe just a short while ago, he suffered from many strokes and is now battling pneumonia. Hannah Mello will introduce the life of Bill Shields of the Royal Canadian Navy. Mr. John Burke will accept a memory book on behalf of Mr. Shields. Would Mr. Burke please join Hannah at the podium?
Good morning, veterans, people of the community, students, and assembled dignitaries. My name is Hannah, and on February 5th, my fellow classmate, Megan, and I got to interview a soldier, a real veteran. I found that an amazing privilege, and until that day and even afterwards, I was absolutely exhilarated. Even thinking about it is just amazing. I interviewed William Shields with Megan, and William told us about how he used to make slingshots and bow and arrows. He loved playing sports, and he was even working at such a young age. Like Megan and I, he loved school because he liked learning, and he really liked his teacher. Mr. Shields also told us about a scary experience that took place on February 27, 1947, during the Cold War. He was taking a convoy of ships from England to Belgium. His ship and many others were attacked by a submarine. The ship sank instantly, and him and his shipmates spent an entire hour in freezing cold water. William Shields and all of his fellow veterans represent the thousands who never came home, stories that were not able to be told, who never got to be interviewed. These veterans, and all of whom that are not here, are very important people. I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone to keep Mr. William Shields in all of our prayers. I'm happy to present a token of our appreciation, a memory book.
On behalf of Bill, I'm honored to accept this book this morning. I spoke to Irene, his wife, yesterday, and she informed me that Bill is now out of the ICU and has come along quite well. I'll see that he gets this book this afternoon. And I heard this morning mention heroes twice, I believe. Bill is a real hero. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah and Mr. Burke. We will keep Mr. Shields in our prayers. Olivia will now introduce the life of Mr. George Stahl of the Royal Canadian Corps of Signals. Would Mr. Stahl please join Olivia at the podium?
Good morning, beloved veterans, Mr. Flynn, Mr. Robinson, Bronte Legions, Oakville Community, and our school. My name is Olivia DeStefano, and on February 5th, my colleagues Tyler Lewis, Gianna Olden, Marianne Sater, and Brandon Daria have been blessed with being honored to meet and interview veteran George Stahl. It was an experience that it was so amazing, you cannot even begin to describe it. The feeling when he walked through the door made us feel ecstatic. Okay, we're not being really honest with ourselves. We couldn't find him, so we had to go and look for him. George Stahl was born in Poland in 1948. He immigrated to Canada when he was 12. He joined the cadet course when he was in high school with 3 friends. When he finally joined the army, he was a peacekeeper and dispatch rider in the Middle East for 6 months. In the army, he was a communicator. To show this, he wore a band on his right upper arm, and the top half was white and the bottom half was blue. We made some connections. Brandon's connection was that his grandfather fought in World War II. Marianne's connection is that her grandfather was also a communicator in World War II. Tyler and his friends always played with cap guns, which George Stahl also loved. We recall from the interview that Mr. Stahl said that most young people today are spoiled, think they know it all, and a lack of respect, and things come too easy to them. I hope we proved you wrong. We would now like to present this memory book to him.
Lastly, Aidan Turnbull will introduce the life of Mr. Mike Venzel of the Royal Canadian Navy. Would Mr. Venzel please join Aidan at the podium?
morning. My name is Aiden. Me and my group, Andrew, Kyle, and Alex had an interview with Mike Wenzel. Mike Wenzel was aboard the HMCS Haida. Mike Wenzel was born in 1940 in Port Robertson, Ontario. Mike Wenzel has astonishing stories about his life. Mike and some fellow sailors were testing out new lifeboats. Mike and the fellow sailors got lost at sea. Many cold nights and burning hot days, Mike and the fellow sailors were not at sight, so they sent out fighter jets to find them. In that very fighter jet that found Mike is a veteran that is joining us here today. It is important to remember to make sure people know about these wonderful veterans and their sacrifices to us. We should also remember the veterans that did not make it out alive. These veterans that are here today represent the ones that did not make it out alive. We are honored to present our memory book to Mr. Mike Wenzel.
Thank you. I'm going to say a word. I'd like to thank the students, the little ones here. All of you did a fine job. I am on the board of directors of the Friends of HMCS Haida. The past 2 or 3 years, I have a team of veterans. Those two included Mr. Lloyd, Mr. Stahl. We go to the different schools. We've done 60 to 70 schools in the last 3 years, over 6,000 students. And I must say, St. Dominic's ranks right up here. You have gone far and beyond what is called for. We mostly do grade 10 high school history classes. Although I did do a daycare center when they're 2 to 4-year-olds, and you can't really tell them much except how many dolphins and whales we saw, so that kind of impressed them. Other than that, I didn't know my distinguished veterans were such saviors of the world with these stories that they told. And especially John was the guy in the plane that found me at sea, so I always kidded the Air Force, but I gotta admit, Anyway, and this sailor suit, by the way, I wore 55 years ago. This hat I bought in 1958 for $2, because the Navy only gives you one and I lost it. So, and I must also say that it saddens me, we're talking about Corporal Cirillo and Patrice Vincent. In our time in the Navy or in the Air Force or wherever, you wore your uniform. We traveled the world, whatever port we went into, we wore the uniform. Unfortunately, the way the world is now, they can't. They have to leave them on board ship and wear civvies. So that's one of the products of our world. And the Cuban Missile Crisis, you will look in the history books and it mentions the Americans. It doesn't mention any Canadians. The only Canadians would be us. Gene Reed over there was on HMCS Huron during that time. And we're all called out and never told your wives, girlfriends, nobody. You just went to sea or up in the air and you're gone for a month. Like I say, different time. Again, thank you, students. I really appreciate this.
At this time, we would like to unveil a plaque dedicated to all the men and women who have served in the armed forces and whose voices and stories remain untold. The students gathered here today, your colleagues in the armed forces, in our community will not forget about you. The men we have honored today symbolize all of those men and women whose stories and voices are important and must be remembered. We would like to invite Mr. Flynn, Mr. Robinson, Ms. Dawson, Mike Wenzel, Ron Kirk, Andy Barber, Bill Shields, John Kirk, George Stahl, Hugh Patterson, and Ken Lloyd to help unveil the newest plaque in our garden.
that the freedom and peace we enjoy today is the result of the sacrifices of our men and women in uniform and that of their families. There will never be enough that we can say or do to thank them and support them. Their stories and voices will be forever remembered in the Bronte Veterans Garden. To conclude today's ceremony, the St. Dominic School Choir will lead us in singing O Canada. Please stand for our national anthem. Thank you and have a great day.